I met Sean and Bruce some 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason. No conscience. No understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life, death, good or evil, right or wrong. I met these 50-year-old men in the bleakest, most emotionless faces and the blackest eyes. The devil's eyes. I spent 10 years trying to podcast with them, and then another 7 years trying to keep them locked up, because I realized that living behind those men's eyes was purely and simply evil. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, he's just a Shatner a mask away from not scaring the kids. Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet.
Oh, no, I love kids.
And it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to a good scare. He just looks in the mirror. Bruce Leslie.
If you can't stab your sister, who can you stab?
Who can you stab? You got to stab your closest relatives. That's what they all say, right?
Yes.
Well, it is October, everybody, and we love us some spooky season, but what better actor to share this spooky season with than arguably one of the biggest and probably inarguably the longest running Scream Queens of all time, Jamie Lee Curtis, in a miniseries we're going to be calling Scream Queen-O-Ween, the films of Jamie Lee Curtis, as we figured that even though it's Halloween, it's not Halloween just yet. We still have many days away from that. John Carpenter's 1978 movie Halloween is where her kind of feature fame, leaped up there and everything. So hasn't stopped from there pretty much. So we'll check all that kind of good stuff out and everything. But Jamie Lee Curtis month, who's excited?
I'm excited.
Me.
I love
Jamie
horror
Lee.
movies and having the original. I won't call her the original because someone will point out blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to call her the ultimate. So having the ultimate Scream Queen be the sponsor of our first Scream Queen-O-Ween, I'm so excited. I look forward to this month all year long. And it's a month where you guys are really good sports. We all indulge the season, and we get to watch some of this fun, spooky stuff.
Hold on. Jamie Lee Curtis is sponsoring this show?
Yeah.
I thought that was the people over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, and Dinger Zone. And speaking of Dinger Zone, on this week's Dinger Zone, since we're spending our spooky month here with Jamie Lee Curtis talking all of her spooky movies here and everything, we wanted to go to the opposite side of that scale for some of you that might not be into the scary stuff. Maybe you want things a little bit more on the wholesome side. Why don't you go check out this week's Dinger Zone where we talk about our top 5 non-horror Jamie Lee Curtis films. A very good time over there at the Dinger Zone. Why don't you go check that out? Patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level, and we really appreciate that. Thank you to all of you fine folks for keeping this train flowing, man. We really appreciate it.
I don't know if I'd call the movies that are on our top 5 wholesome. It's just the top 5 movies that aren't horror movies that star Jamie Lee Curtis.
I know. I was sitting here trying to think about how, wholesome doesn't apply to perfect.
I'm saying in comparison, I suppose. Right? Maybe that's how. Okay. That's my bull crap that I'm going with, and I'm sticking with it. That'll be good. Join up, patreon.com/HMP, or drop us an email, halfasspod@gmail.com. Well, boys, it's one of the originals here, so let's get into it because I'm sure we got plenty of here to talk about. Here's the IMDb plotline for Halloween. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois to kill again. This is written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, directed by John Carpenter, starring Donald Pleasence, Jamie Lee Curtis, PJ Schultz, Nancy Keys, and the just recently passed Charles Cyphers and Nick Castle as The Shape. Listen, this is, I don't know how much new ground we'll actually cover on this podcast because let's be honest, this is one of the biggest horror films of all time.
People have talked about Halloween before on a podcast this time of year.
Yeah, especially this time of year. Normally people are doing it in March when it's popular, but no, not us. We go against the tide.
Yeah, we're a podcast that's so original. It's 3 white guys talking about horror movies in October.
Son of a gun.
You guys look, this is well-trod territory for sure. But also, it would be a very bad thing if it were Halloween. We're talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. We don't put Halloween in the month of October. That is a gross oversight and ridiculous.
And also, I think that there's so much to say about this movie that no matter how much we do say, whenever we decide that the time is up, we're going to say, oh man, I forgot to say this, or I forgot to say that.
Of course.
Because it is a movie that everybody's thought about, I think.
Yeah.
And speaking of thinking about, I'm telling you, I think the internet, well, I don't think I know this. This is, we got to know this as far as life goes at this point. But the internet is always listening, damn it. And I know that the internet knows that we're doing this episode this week because TikTok fed me a video of the OG guy who did the mask here on Halloween, him recreating the mask with a Shatner mask and showing you how he did it in the late 70s there and everything. It's very cool how he's just kind of like, oh, we do this, here's how I spray the hair, here's how we cut out the eye holes and all this kind of stuff. Showing, and once you take off the sideburns, that's when really, Michael Myers kind of comes alive there and everything, and ripping off the eyebrows and all that kind of good stuff. But he was giving you like literally a step-by-step process of how he did it with the original one. He's like, we did the mask in like 45 minutes. It wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny when you think like they probably ended up spending all in $100 on the Mike Myers mask in the original film. And then you cut to the movies, the last 3 Halloween movies that were made, and I guarantee you, no less than $35,000 was spent to recreate that. I guarantee you.
They're just unbelievable looking. I mean, the new makeup and everything, and where we've gone in this short amount of time, where Hollywood makeup is just like unbelievable. But yeah, especially, but this movie is held together with duct tape and prayers and stuff like that.
That's why I love it. I mean, I'm going to just go ahead and say my personal favorite film in the genre. I think this is the pinnacle of indie horror. And I think that a big part of the reason I love it is how much can-do attitude you got going on here and how it all worked out beautifully. And it was done at a time when you really had to want to make a movie So I love how it just all comes together beautifully. And John Carpenter doing, a jack of all trades, making his own music here, writing his own story. I love the whole soup to nuts aspect of it.
When you look at 70s John Carpenter, can you imagine giving that guy money? I mean, have you seen him?
Imagine is getting anything returned.
He's just like this skinny little guy with his mustache, and he's smoking his cigarettes and his stringy little hair and his like crazy eyes and stuff like that. I wouldn't give this guy 2 nickels to rub together. I feel like Deborah Hill had to have been such a sweet talker with people that she's the one who really kind of put all this. Because I look at John and I'm like, I don't trust this rat man for nothing.
He also shoots off at the mouth all the time.
Oh,
even
yeah.
when you're not supposed to. So there's no way that this money didn't come in from Deborah's side of things. There's just no way.
Because he just doesn't seem like the guy that would be nice to anybody to be like, yeah, we feel like we're going to give that dude a whole bunch of money.
You don't have the number of legendary indie hits that John Carpenter has and not have a ton of studio offers without being a real prickola,
No.
Yeah.
So let's talk about her for half a second, because I'm sure that the name gets kind of dropped here and there, but is often not put in enough. Is Deborah Hill is his co-writer for this and producer and longtime partner and everything, who, let's be honest, after her death, and their disassociation and later on her death and stuff, his work kind of suffered. But they were a really great pair. They were a couple at one point, and then they weren't for a very long time and stuff like that. But like, I really think she was the key to helping a lot of his early films and stuff get this proper direction and whatnot. And this movie specifically, just because of all the dialogue and everything that she helped rewrite and stuff for all the girls, so it actually sounded like teenage girls as opposed to what 26-year-old John Carpenter thought teenage girls sounded like, which I'm sure was not even remotely realistic.
John, we can't have a third scene where these teenage girls keep talking about how hot their movie directors are.
Yes.
Yeah, she is a balance, right? She brings the balance to John Carpenter. for the most part. I think that once she's gone from the picture, then Carpenter just falls off a cliff, right? And it's kind of the George Lucas of it all, is that when you don't have anybody in the room anymore that whose opinion you trust, and that person says to you, "This is a bad idea," you have to listen to that person. And I think that happened with Carpenter, and I think it happened with Lucas, definitely, where it's like, oh, you just want to make whatever you want to make, and that's fine, but you're going to get blowback because filmmaking is a process, man. Like, you need more than one voice putting that stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And you can totally tell. I mean, naming your movie Ghost of Mars, and then you have the audacity to make what that movie is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like, if I have a movie called Vampire Clowns Go to Mummy College, there better be vampires, there better be clowns, and there better be a college with mummies.
Yes, definitely.
And Ghosts of Mars has the Mars part. Nailed that part. They are definitely on Mars. They don't have the other part.
Hey, competing Mars movies. You got that movie, then you had the Brian De Palma movie.
Metaphorical ghosts, right, Sean? Like, I don't want no metaphorical ghosts. I don't want no spiritual ghosts. I want like oogity boogity ghosts.
You got Ice Cube. What do you want?
If we've learned anything from that classic film, Snakes on a Plane, it's that there weren't nearly enough snakes on that plane in the first cut. And if the internet is to be believed, Samuel L. Jackson got very mad that there weren't enough snakes and he didn't get to say the line. So they rush back. He says the most famous line from that movie, and they just up the snake ante a lot. And that's what John Carpenter needed. He needed somebody to go, Johnny, you got to listen to me, son. The name of your movie is Ghosts of Mars, and you're John Carpenter. You need to have ghosts on that Mars.
Listen, here's the thing. No, he doesn't, and I'll tell you why he doesn't. Because John Carpenter did with Ghost of Mars what he did with this movie, what he did with Assault on Precinct 13, what he did with The Thing, what he did with pretty much 90% of his catalog, and made Rio Bravo. All of these movies are Rio Bravo. Every one of them.
Yes. There's many Rio Bravos.
This movie, even Halloween, has by the end of the movie, you're in Rio Bravo because it's this force from the outside that's trying to get in. You're still in Rio Bravo mode. It's fantastic.
Is Halloween a horror movie Star Wars?
What do you mean by that?
Sort of a little bit of a surprise hit in a genre that people wouldn't really put money into. But more importantly, it's like Star Wars didn't tell an original story, but it told the story in a way that people wanted to consume it, you know?
Yeah.
So you've got Hidden Fortress repackaged. You've got some other Kurosawa stuff repackaged. And then I think, we can break down how Halloween isn't the movie that came up with all the classic horror tropes, but it's the reason we know them and that they actually became tropes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like other movies that really were the slasher before Halloween was the slasher, even kind of the faceless slasher. But John Carpenter just found a way to bring his unique vision to it and make it feel unlike anything we'd ever seen. So it reached a bigger audience and had a legacy, unlike all the other stuff that I'm sure were influences on this.
There's also the other aspect to the first Halloween movie, which is that Mike Myers is something that people can bring home with them. That's basically the hidden thing about the Halloween movies, is that forever and ever you're going to be selling Mike Myers merch, like forever. And
yes.
whether it's people dressing up as Michael Myers, whether it's like toys, what have you, it's going to keep going. Even though these last 3 movies that came out, there will be another Michael Myers Halloween movie at some point. And it's just going to continue ad infinitum.
And I really do think the strength is built on this original movie, which I think is a lot to say with those movies that came after some of the original Star Wars movies. Is there's still goodwill from the original one keeping things moving along.
Well, I would say to you that I think that without Empire Strikes Back, there isn't 30 years later a new Star Wars. I think that it's Empire Strikes Back that everything stands on, because Star Wars is a good movie, but Empire Strikes Back is a great movie.
And yeah, if Empire poops the bed, there's no way that we're getting anything else after that. That just goes like, oh well, they were lucky that first time, but I guess you can't win them all. But no, we did even better than the first, and so that we were able to continue to go on after that.
Well, I mean, won't argue against Empire. I mean, you're not going to get me to do that.
Think of the Matrix, right? Like the Matrix, the first Matrix movie is amazing.
Better. Thank you, Sean. Better comparison.
It's an amazing movie, and everything about it is basically perfect. But the second that you open up that world a little more, things start falling, right? Because when you have a keyhole view of that world, that's far more interesting than seeing the big picture of that world. And I think that that's the mistake that Halloween has made over and over again whenever they try to expand on it, is that you have, like even the second Halloween movie, the one that John Carpenter directed, once you learn that, Laurie and Michael Myers are also siblings, like stuff like that, that's when things start falling apart. That's too much for this premise. There should be so very little premise to a Halloween.
Well, he just wrote the second one. Just want to clarify so nobody gets.
He wrote it. He didn't direct that one.
Not the second one. No.
Oh, I did not know that.
So here's something I gotta. I guess I was going to ask kind of a question about, like, with Halloween, the solemnness of this movie. I think that the artistry, I don't know what else to call it, but artistry of John Carpenter in this has caused Michael Myers to be the member of what I would call like that second wave of franchise horror movie icons from like the 80s, late 70s, 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He always seems to be the one to me that kind of stands up a little bit as slightly higher brow. Like Jason and Freddy are just as much about the ridiculousness and the goofiness, whereas Michael Myers is always about the scare. Like, I don't know. I mean, they did bring a little silliness in with some of the rappers in the late 90s and early 2000s in the franchise, but still, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I think that Michael Myers stands about a head and shoulders above his colleagues from that era, the Freddy Kruegers of the world.
I was thinking about this, and I think the main reason for that is, and I think one of the reasons that we have the longevity in the Michael Myers character that we do is the advantageousness of this movie doing it as well, of Michael Myers not talking. He doesn't say anything in any film ever. He's quiet, never says a word. And that's the scariest thing ever. And you can read anything into that. You can put anything onto that at that point. You can also make him any actor at that point too. So he can always, he's forever livable. It's really hard as hell for us to recast a Freddy Krueger. We've proven that.
Yeah.
So it's tough to recast that, but we can recast a Jason. That's doable. Yeah. We can recast a Michael Myers. That's doable. So it's just one of those, it's an advantageous thing for them to not have anything into that character. And let's just kind of like, while we're kind of talking in that same sort of vein, why this movie works and why Rob Zombie's Halloween version doesn't work is because he's taking something like Zombie takes
hold on, because I want to go backwards for a second because I can see that you're about to go down an avenue.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to the three franchises that you just talked about, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, I think that the first Nightmare on Elm Street and the first Halloween are both incredibly efficient, smart movies for what those movies are. I think that they're well made. I think that they are clever. I think the premise is incredibly strong. I think that, like, yes, with Freddy you can't find somebody else because Robert Englund is Freddy and there's nothing you can do about that. That's just the way that's going to be. But the first Nightmare on Elm Street, first Halloween are legitimately good movies. Like, the filmmakers know what they're doing who make those two movies. Friday the 13th is a cash grab. Like it's if you're into Jason and you're into Friday the 13th movies, good on you. But those movies are dumb, and they're dumb as dog dicks, and we all know
it. Even took them the third movie before they even realized how to properly rip off Halloween. Like,
right.
They were ripping off the wrong parts of it.
Right.
They didn't even give us the real Jason that works till the third movie.
Listen,
Right.
Sean
And
Cunningham wanted to make some money, right? So that's why he had that full page, and like I was either one of the rags, right, about Friday the 13th. They put out the ad and everything. They didn't know what the damn movie was. They didn't have a clue, right? They wanted to make money. This was a money maker opportunity right here,
Right.
and they did well enough with it. So
Yeah.
I watched a behind the scenes documentary, making of kind of documentary about Friday the 13th, the original one, and they built they had to build a fake camp. Basically, the camp
Sure.
that they used was run down or whatever. So they built a fake camp and brought in toilets and set them in there. But anyone who's been around a movie set will know that you're not going to necessarily put plumbing in those toilets if they're just for a scene and not, for an actual building.
whoops-a-doozy.
However, while they were gone, because they ran out of money and they had to be furloughed for about 6 weeks, while they were gone, some hikers stumbled upon it and thought it was a real bathroom and had soiled all of their toilets that wouldn't
Amazing.
flush.
Amazing.
Happens to me every time I go to a Home Depot. Hey,
So,
how convenient.
So my point being that that when it comes to those three, like I get people love Jason, I get it, and I know why you do, but there isn't a standalone Friday the 13th movie where you're like, this movie is legitimately just a great movie. Like this holds up the test of time. Everything about this movie is well done.
2009 comes close.
I'd say the one with Corey Feldman.
Well, no, but that's not a standalone, though. You really have to kind of know a little bit about that going in, because that's like that. While the final chapter is there, the final chapter is not built upon nothing. That's the unfortunate part that you have with
I
that.
said what I said, and I won't. back
Tommy
down now.
Jarvis, is that the character?
That's correct. Good job. Wow, nice, good pull.
Wait, Tommy?
Nice.
Tommy Jarvis, yeah. Very much correct. I think one of the important.
So you were saying
What was I saying? I don't even.
Go
remember.
ahead, Adam.
I don't even remember. I'll talk about this.
I
Because
had stopped you.
fucking
ahead.
internet, I tell you what. All right, I'll talk about this. I think one of the things that this movie had kind of going for it, and like, I don't know if this is just luck of the draw or whatever, but really the stars aligning with being able to get Jamie Lee Curtis, number one, and that's because obviously you have Hollywood royalty here. She's a kind of an unproven person. She's been on like Quincy and a couple other little, TV things here and there, but nothing anybody would call like a starring performance that you would see coming from, the kid of two Hollywood legends, right? One of which being, like what one could call the original Scream Queen, with Janet Leigh and Psycho and everything
Tony
like
Curtis,
that.
yeah.
And then with Tony Curtis is quite the screamer, I would
original
imagine.
Scream Queen, Tony Curtis.
Excuse me, everybody. I've got to scream really loud. That's a good Tony Curtis. But with her kind of coming in here and having that sort of same, like, this is the daughter of the girl from Psycho and everything like that. Having that little thing in your horror movie, great promotional thing. And then you've got Donald Pleasance, who is kind of, just this legendary, character actor who is in everything. I always say, like, for a ham sandwich or Capri Sun, Donald Pleasance will show up to your film. And this certainly was that case here. And again,
he's my favorite Blofeld.
He brings a level of gravitas to this role that like only him or somebody like a Christopher Lee, who was talked about as a possibility for this role and everything. But Donald Pleasance is who you can afford, so you get Donald Pleasance.
That all these years later, and Dr. Loomis is still my favorite depiction of a healthcare professional in film. I love his diagnostic ability. It'll never get old to me. I can never not joke about how horribly responsible it is for the guy to say his diagnosis is just pure evil.
Listen, Bruce, when you go beyond, that's the problem, is he went beyond all of what, normal medical and science and stuff would actually have us to believe. Sure, all of those things you could diagnose stuff, but sometimes even that doesn't even
like
cure it,
Just like an old-fashioned paper chart. And they've got like a big red stamp that they just slap on the front of the chart that says evil and file it away and lock him up.
Just put a little stamp on his hand.
I'd love to have that stamp. A patient pushes my buttons. Evil. Lock him up for life.
That's the key that does it. It's just a stamp.
I don't know enough about Donald Pleasance. Did he ever speak about this role? Because he's in it forever, right? I mean, he's even in the 5th Halloween. Am I right?
I forget. I honestly, the first 3 are the only outside of that H2O and the 3 new ones. I haven't really watched it. Most of them suck. Halloween 4 sucks ass.
The reason why I'm asking is because I'm wondering if Donald Pleasance is treating the role like, hey man, I'm a gun for hire. I come in, I do my job, I go home. Or is he is he smearing around bullshit about how, the thing that I really like about Dr. Loomis is just the levels that this guy has.
I will tell you this from behind the scenes video that I've watched. I've watched some behind the scenes where him and Carpenter are actually working out beats. And I will tell you that Donald Pleasance, in for a penny, in for a pound. He wants to play this role well. Carpenter is giving him a little bit, but is also kind of being a bit of a dickhead at the same time too. He's like, "Ooh, yeah,
what?
Yeah,
is
I know."
Donald Pleasance British?
Is either British or Australian? I forget.
Okay,
because I know he does. He's done so many Australian films and stuff. Again, because he's a cheapie.
He seems like he's from that era of like a British actor where he's just totally sloshed and drunk, like Peter O'Toole level the whole time he's on set.
Oh, one could imagine. I'm trying to read. I don't know.
Oh, trying to read if he's Egyptian or not.
He's Egyptian. Yeah, it turns out he's.
I saw him walking one time, and that was the first clue.
Step one. It takes 20 minutes for them to get to where he's from. Why don't you just put that in the first thing in his highlight there, IMDb? You suck. England. He's an Englishman.
You know who's holding up well? That's Susanna Hoff. Just saw her the other day on a live thing. I was like, holy crap. She's like 60 years old and amazing looking.
Oh, yeah.
Huzzah.
What's the other? Jennifer Esposito's on TikTok also. Let me tell you something. Not too shabby. All right. What are we talking about again, Jennifer Esposito? Got off track for a moment.
I saw that who's and what's on What's in Favor.
But Pleasance, like, I think he really, like, he's a journeyman guy. He's there for a paycheck, but I also think that he gives at least a little bit of a shit enough to try to act in especially even in this movie.
I don't know. I'd have to look specifically at the credits and things, but you could almost say he was as much a through line in these movies as Jamie Lee Curtis was, because she didn't.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, and she didn't make her comeback until later, and I don't know when he died, but I was wondering if his death is about the time she starts coming back to have some through line.
He died in the year of 1995.
And when was H2O?
It was, I know it was during one of the Halloween movies, because like maybe he's like in 6, but he only filmed a little bit of it. I haven't done the research on it, but I do remember that
I bet his death is why it was such a big deal in the marketing that she was coming back for H2O, though. I bet that was the first one made without any footage of his that was original.
I don't think people aren't, not for nothing. I love you, Donald Pleasance, but no one's showing up for Donald Pleasance. They don't give a shit. They're showing up for Michael Myers. They don't care.
Touche.
They
all
don't.
the cosplayers at my local theater, there were no Michael Myers there. We were all Team Loomis.
You know what I will say though, in one of the latest Halloween remakes there and everything, when they brought in somebody to replay Donald Pleasance and they made this Donald Pleasance mask and everything,
it's
brother, good. Wow,
it is good. Yes.
frightening.
Like, I thought they CGI'd Donald Pleasance in there. And when you told me how they did it, Adam, I was shocked.
It's like, nope, that's a real mask on a person. You're like, geez, Louise, that is the most realistic thing I've ever seen. It's amazing and it's scary.
It's like if you're unfortunate enough to look like Donald Pleasance, you should at least get a paycheck for it. It's like, of all the celebrities to look just alike, why did it have to be Donald Pleasance?
I think that guy got paid.
Worst of all, I'm a girl.
Carpenter did a great job with this movie. I think he was like 27, 28 at the time. I don't think like the majority of the people on this crew were not even 30 years old. Right. This was just a bunch of kids coming together, just dicking around and making a movie, and God knows it turned out to be one of the biggest, most influential horror films, of all time.
Creative kids, though, because they came up with great practical solutions with some of the lighting. Like if you've seen the explanation of how they did the kind of lighting reveal, they had cardboard in front of it and just kind of slide it back to reveal his face just at the right time, wherein his face just kind of shines out of the shadow. It was pretty cool. Seeing how that was done. Pretty cool. Just the whole tracking shot, that I think is so famous from this opening, Adam, the POV thing.
Obviously the
one of the mask on it.
One of the most undersung heroes of this entire movie is Dean Cundey's cinematography, just from everything. Like, we have a horror film that's mostly shot in daylight, and it's still pretty darn scary, which is pretty good.
Yes. Yeah.
But what Cundey does again with the Steadicam there and everything in the very early days of all of that and everything is pretty awesome. And I think what an amazingly good way to open up the film and stuff, really kind of grab us, put us in that spot, bring us on for all this time, having it in this first person, this unrealistic first person point of view, which is also great as well, because it's like it almost brings to the odd surrealness of it all, because that is about the height and everything, but like it doesn't move, like your head wouldn't move like that while you walk. But that's what's kind of cool and creepy about it at the exact same time. But one of those things is just so good that, like, again, them having to time all that out and get all of those things right for kids in their 20s to hit all that shit correctly. Amazing. So good. But again, they also didn't have the internet to distract them away from it. So I guess that's
they had to do something with all their, after you can only sleep up to 16 hours a day, then you got to get up and do something.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the cinematography, I just want to say, from my point of view, one thing I've always loved about this movie is just as soon as you see them walking through the neighborhood, you see Lori and her friends from high school, I immediately feel that way where it's like, it's a little chilly at first, so I put on the jacket, but then after I walk a couple blocks, I'm sort of hot, and now I wish I didn't have the jacket on. Like, it's that level of temperature. Like, I just feel myself in this spot. And very few things like grab me with that kind of like fall warmth that this thing can grab me with. It really does transfer me to a different time and place.
Which is amazing, being shot in California in the summer. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Yeah.
They had to haul in all of those leaves and stuff and put them in the scenes and stuff.
Sir, there wasn't a ton of leaves.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
There's very little leaves.
That's what I'm saying. Whatever leaves they got, they hauled those in though. That was them. So it was but good again. That's doing a good job of selling you on what you're seeing.
Kentucky. That's how good it looked.
I do like
Haddonfield, Illinois. It's near Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Haddonfield, Illinois doesn't exist, because Haddonfield, New Jersey, where Deborah Hill was born and raised and everything, is a place, but they didn't want this to be New Jersey, so they just put in Illinois and named it Haddonfield after Deborah Hill's hometown.
But
West Haddonfield?
Is John Carpenter from some ties to Bowling Green? Anyway, that's a weird question. Let's move on.
I don't know.
I like that you try to take us down an alley and then you refuse to go down that alley.
Yeah, because it's really not entertaining, and I should have not brought it up.
Carthage, New York, John Carpenter.
my favorite moment in this movie is when you learn that Mike Myers ate a dog.
Well, did he eat a dog? He at least killed a dog. We do know that.
He ate a skunk.
It is implied that he ate that dog.
Maybe. I always just thought he just killed it.
When he said, like, for the longest time, he says maybe skunks did it, and I always thought it was a skunk that was eaten. That made me think he was really gross.
No, I didn't have any skunk readings into the film, but okay. I listen. Whether or not he killed a dog, who cares? But it is frightening. I don't want. No one wants a dog
care, man. People care a lot. We need to know.
Anyway,
but no, I'm with Sean. He ate the dog.
He definitely ate that dog.
He was hungry.
I don't know what it is, but there's some cuts of this movie that have nudity and some that don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is. Like there's some times where they'll just reframe the shot where PJ Souls is in the bed and everything, and that's also a great scene just with the guy wearing his little putting the ghost outfit with the glasses and everything. Yeah. So that's just awesome.
That is awesome.
I feel like the version I've seen when I go see it in the theater has more nudity than what you see at home.
Now, I remember seeing it. Get this. There was, I forget what celebration year this was because they do it all the damn time. But Fathom was streaming, and it was streaming. That's how you knew it was bad too. Halloween years back and everything. And they had an opening little bit and everything that was all about Rob Zombie's Halloween that was about to come out. So they were like, let's bring you down before we bring you back up by watching the real Halloween. But when they showed that Halloween there and everything, when the whole point of the scene is the reveal and her saying, "See anything that you like." She's also asking the audience when she's doing this, and if you're not showing us, then we're not on the same page here. But in in that screening, it was just like it was. I'm not blurred out, but at least it was framed different to where there was no nipple, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? This doesn't make any damn sense.
I paid for nipple, and there was no nipple.
It honestly, it felt like a ripoff. It really did. I was mad. Not only that it was like
it's a great nip rip of 78,
dude. It was 185 showing a 235 movie. It looked like ass. You paid a premium price. I was upset. I'm still a little upset. That was 20 years ago.
To make it up to you, we'll throw some extra nipples in the next one.
Thank God. Can they be Donald Pleasant's nipples, please? I prefer.
The only ones we got.
But listen, Jamie Lee Curtis, let's just talk about her. It's so fresh-faced and young in this movie. Yeah. It is astounding how just like a little kid she looks. She definitely looks like an actual high schooler.
She does look like a young, baby, but she still already has the like hardworking single mom of 3 kids vibe, though.
I totally don't think I don't feel that at all. I feel like she's like the second smartest kid in her school.
I feel like she's pressed. She's communicating to me like she is the second smartest, and that's what the pressure is.
Yeah, she's trying to go to Vanderbilt.
Like somebody who is not quite satisfying everyone.
You think she want to go to Brown? No, she's trying to do better than that.
Tired of your Vassar bashing.
Listen, I think she. One of the cool parts about it is the kind of arc of her character. She is somebody who is a little bit more timid. She has a little backbone, but like she's still trying to kind of find herself and who she is and everything. And there's nothing that'll help you find yourself than like somebody trying to kill you. You really find out the type of the measure of your life.
Find some backbone
when somebody's going to kill you. Again, one of the great parts about this is that we get all of this stuff going on, and we're teasing Michael Myers throughout the entire movie and stuff. But again, we're doing most of that teasing in the daylight.
Yes.
What other movie has the gall to do that?
I was pretty surprised, like the one when he's just coming around the hedge, just sort of staring, broad daylight, mask and everything. You know, nowadays you think, well, you demystify it if you do it like that. But no, I think that's creepy as heck.
You'd shoot it darker or whatever. There's so many other things that you would do, but it just kind of being bright. It's
so like, real, though. Like if I were a high school kid getting stalked by a pervert, that's what I think it would look like. And that's kind of creepy, man. I think that realism, that hyper realism works on me sometimes. I
think it's almost creepier the fact that Michael Myers is driving a car in this film.
Yeah, and like grabbing matchbooks, and it's very strange.
Well, worse than that is when they mention it's just like, well, he drove a car. They taught him to drive a car or some shit like that, and you're just like, wait a minute, who's around here teaching him to drive a car? Who's just like, listen, he's a mental patient, but we need to learn how to shift gears.
In the first draft, he stole a helicopter like Rambo would in the sequels.
Listen, I wouldn't put it past. And by the fourth or fifth Halloween, we're starting to do some shit like that at this point. So we're like, hey, listen, he's going to be burned alive 15 times, and he's fine. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
At least Michael Myers never went to space.
Well, listen, don't put too many things past anybody these days. So watch out. Again. One of the smart things that they kind of did with this, and that they kind of, at least for the most part, I guess, continued to do with the Halloween series, is keeping Mike Myers kind of under the mask for the most part, or we don't see him. Even within this movie, when we take off the mask and it's Nick Castle underneath and everything, he's not doing anything wild and crazy. We don't have any wild makeup on him. He's making a bit of a funny face, a little bit confused sort of, sort of face or whatever. But there's nothing crazy about it. There's nothing truly scary. There's no scars or anything like that. It's just this insane person that's underneath that mask. And keeping the mask on that character, again, not seeing the face and everything, I think is one of the really intelligent things, keeping him in that icon status and stuff, along with the not talking, that keeps him going low these, almost 50 years at this point?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, it'll be 50 years coming up quick.
Yeah.
78 to 28.
And John Carpenter will still be like, I want my money for it. Just give me the money. I'll be fine.
I guess, 28 is probably when we should expect our next big, cash in reboot thing from Halloween, isn't it?
Well, listen, they're bound to do it at least some point.
I would much rather have a 50th anniversary kind of re-release thing than,
They'll do that. It's bound to happen at any particular point. All right. So with Jamie Lee Curtis, is there so obviously this is kind of like her big thing and whatnot. Anything she's kind of doing wrong in this? I don't know that there's too many if any kind of down notes in this movie with her.
She defined an archetype. Did I pronounce that right? Archetype.
Yeah.
I mean, she really, really defined a whole kind of character here. So who am I? By definition, if she does it, it's the way to do it at this point. It's like trying to criticize a deity.
And then of course, just taking that in, and we'll get to several different points of it and stuff. We won't get to the final ones here and everything, but to later then come back to the character so many years later and, just do more Halloween movies and still continue on in the Laurie Strode character, while the actor and character, I guess, at this point are, in their 60s and stuff. What a wild time that was, that we made it happen. That's what I think is even crazier. Is we all kind of were like, "Hey, let's have this happen," and it happened kind of in the middle of her career, and then again later, in kind of the twilight of her career. You don't like saying that, but come on, we got more behind us than in front of us. But it's kind of astounding at how well that this character was just kind of cemented in this film, and her performance then also just kind of transcending and going out throughout those other films where we buy Laurie Strode, 40 years later and stuff, pining for the execution of Michael Myers and all that kind of good stuff. It's astounding. It works.
It's like a whole new folklore, man. It's, there are a lot of franchises that come and, people are really into them, and you get the Friday the 13th, you get the Nightmare on Elm Street, but for some reason their gimmick passes and they go away. But the stuff that really, really sticks around follows those Campbellian rules of mythology, and it becomes folklore. And I think that's kind of what Halloween has done. It's outlived its colleagues and has a life that's just an order of magnitude more significant, I guess, in pop culture than they are.
Yeah, and in and of itself also, like you said, just spawned other kind of franchises and stuff like that as well. I mean, it was just the influentialness of Halloween is tough to understate, really. And again, real fast, and you mentioned it for a hot second here, but Carpenter's score is really great. And I love how he just kind of talks about it in such a nonchalant kind of way. He's just like, it's just 4/4 time. What do you want from me? He's like, that's it. All it was just a simple little drum pattern, and that's it.
You got no money to hire somebody to do it for real, so you figure, well, me doing it's better than nothing at all. I'm not going to say why I relate to that kind of thought process because I'm not nearly as productive with it as a John Carpenter type guy. But you know, I like that thought process. I'm just going to do it myself.
And good for him with today with like, so now like he's like, listen, I don't really need to direct movies and stuff like that. He'll make some music and stuff. And I know him and his son and a buddy of his or whatever, they go out and tour and do a whole bunch of their music from the movies and beyond and stuff like that. So, you know, he's doing all right. And he gets to play his video games. John Carpenter's a big video game player, likes playing sports games and stuff like that. So he'd much rather be doing that than directing movies. And, you know, good on him. He's deserved it at this point.
Didn't he have a musical background first, though? I think that he did, right?
Well, he
went to film school. I mean, he was a film school guy. He was one of those.
Yeah, but he was like
USC film school.
But it's
guys.
the 70s. Everybody was also in a band. Okay, you trust me. You were not. If you were in the 70s, you were either in a band or making film, and like half of those dudes were doing all of that stuff. And then, well, God, if you know, honestly, it's continued throughout the years. If you look at everybody from your, you know, Keanu Reeves, your Russell Crowe's, your, you know, a gajillion of these cats all just go like, I'm also going to be a rock and roll man as well. I'm looking at a video of his right now of John Carpenter, you know, in his music days and stuff like that. Go look that up because I feel like I'm going to. After having seen that video, it just looks like Anna-Gata DeVita, but with John Carpenter. So I'm like, okay, all right, this looks just dumb enough to watch. I'm all about that. I like
him to stick to the keyboard and those 4 keys.
Yeah, nothing more than that. What if he sang? What if John Carpenter sang the Halloween theme? Wouldn't that be a fun play? He's got a voice of an angel.
Halloween, it was Halloween.
All right, so Jamie Lee Curtis, like we are asking with all of our kind of episodes here and everything, is there anybody else that could have done this particular role?
At the age, because she looks appropriate age, which is also like kind of strange for the time. Even with people in the movie, there's people in the movie who are like, well, that guy's 40. Like, that guy isn't in high school. That guy's 40. But like, she looks appropriate age. So, like, who do you have? Pam Dauber from Mork and Mindy? Mindy and Mork and Mindy?
She wouldn't be a bad choice.
But is she going to be able to pull off?
I don't think she's going to be able to pull off the acting, but I'm just saying, compared to other slasher movie casting at the time, she's no Jamie Lee Curtis, but she's better than most of the girls they cast.
Sure.
Say Star Wars.
Plato from Different Strokes.
Now, she would have been a little too young in 78.
Star Wars doesn't exist. Carrie Fisher.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Fisher's
actually,
perfect.
That
Carrie
could be
Fisher
something.
do it.
Baby.
Yeah.
That's as close as I got, and like it would be a different performance for sure.
Her parents are Tony Curtis and Eddie Fisher.
So there you go. All right, I like that. Not too shabby. All right, well, let's get down to it. There's only 2 forms of movies come in. They're either art or fart. This is going to be a really tough one. Bruce, Halloween from 1978. Art or fart for you? What do you say?
Oh, this is art, man. I love this. This is the kind of thing I can just watch and daydream about being there when it was being made. You know, it's the reason that some people daydream about making horror movies. Just the stories about it have grown to be part of the zeitgeist. You know, so I'm sure some of them are apocryphal, but it's legendary. Everybody who loves horror loves this. Everybody who wants to make a horror movie, this is what you're going to be referencing and trying to recreate. And it's just great, man. So of course it's art.
If it was called The Babysitter Murders, I don't think we'd ever heard of it, you know?
It's true. It's true. Halloween is literally like another secret ingredient of this movie.
Mm-hmm. John?
I mean, come on, man. It's art. I am not a fan of horror movies for the most part, unless they're trying to say something. But this movie is singular. You know, I mean, you cannot like horror movies and still like Halloween. I'm here for that. I think that Jamie Lee Curtis is just so good in this movie. And it's kind of surprising how good she is, because she probably shouldn't be, but she is.
Not this early, I don't think.
No. And, I think that she kind of has this movie on her back. more so than Donald Pleasance does, even.
Oh yeah.
And I think that she doesn't get crushed under the weight. I think that she's pretty damn good in this. Yeah, it's art.
Yeah, Pleasance is just the pepper on top of this this entree that I think Jamie Lee Curtis is serving up here to us and everything. She's fantastic in this, and the movie itself it's a classic. Like you said, there's hardly a person that probably dislikes this movie. And I think for people that may be new to horror and stuff like that, or just trying to get in, this is not a horrible movie to do that with. It's just scary enough. There's not a ton of, gore and stuff in it. There's a little bit here, a little bit there, some stabbings and stuff, but nothing that you would just be like, oh, wow. And especially comparatively to some of the other stuff that was out there, even a couple years later, this is very tame and mild in comparison. And so I think a good kind of way to dip your toe into that horror water, if you were a kid that was like me and a little bit scared of horror movies and stuff like that, this is a fairly approachable one. Unless you're my brother, because when he saw in a trailer that Michael Myers mask come out of that darkness into the light, he was like, nope, I am not watching that. So
that's a little blood splatter. So
exactly.
Yeah, I never really, all the times I've seen this, you don't even notice it.
That's how good it is.
Yeah, it's like Tarantino's ear, if we'll go back to Tarantino month or whatever. But anyway, but when you put it like that, if there could only be one horror movie, this would have to be it, because anybody can watch it pretty much.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I wanted to talk about, actually, and I never got a chance to. I think that with your brother, right? When I was a child, I hated horror movies because I was so deathly afraid of them. And when I got older and I turned in, when I became a teen, I ended up watching this movie and it was great. Like, I was like, oh, wow, this is a really good movie. Then I became film nerd college guy, and that guy also liked Halloween. And as a father now, like, this is one of those movies where, like, oh, my kids could see this movie and it would not. Like, the thing that might get them the most is the coat hanger in the eye, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It triggers me for totally different reasons.
Right. But that might be the only thing in this movie where it's like, oh, no, that kind of thing. It's just a well-made movie, man. And this is one of those movies, too, where the reason why nerds are still talking about this movie, like us, is because it's so well crafted. People aren't doing deep dives on Prom Night,
Not yet, they aren't.
Well, I mean,
stay tuned.
Those, I mean, you know what I mean by that. I mean,
I know what you mean. Yes,
we're going to be talking about it, but it's not like like every show ever.
I would say
there's no Smithsonian wing for Terror Train.
4 more college theses have been written about Halloween than Prom Night, though I bet you they're both in the triple digits.
At least. Yeah, for me this is art as well. I may say it's one of John Carpenter. It's on the Mount Rushmore of John Carpenter films for sure.
Yeah, man, yeah.
It's just damn good. I almost started to say it's the best, but I'm just like, oh, there's a couple.
No, I don't think so. I don't even think it's his best horror movie.
But yeah, it's a classic for a reason. It's talked about as much as it is for the reason that it is. It's just it's well crafted and just super well done. You can't praise it enough, but it's good. What else can we say? Well, that is it, everybody. We got the first round of October Scream Queen-O-Ween with the films of Jamie Lee Curtis. We're not done yet, though. We got another one coming up, another Carpenter Jamie Lee Curtis combo with The Fog from 1980. So, I'm interested to see what you guys' thoughts on The Fog are. I have several. Every time I watch it, I have a slightly different opinion of the film. So I will be curious as to what I think this time, because over the last 3 different times I've watched The Fog, it's changed my opinion every time.
Oh wow!
I just kind of like talking to you. Then
it's been all over the place.
You can have the whole show with yourself and your 4 points of view.
I'll talk with me and I'll love every second of it. That guy's great. Until then, hey Sean, where can we find some Scootable adventures on the internet?
On the YouTube, it's YouTube /SetDeckSean. please come to that.
We got your links there in the YouTubes and everything. Bruce, what's a favorite recipe you'd like to share?
I would like to share the recipe for success, and that is patreon.com.
Oh, my word.
HMB, right?
Beautiful. Oh, my God. What? Listen, check is in the mail on that one, my friend. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for our second installment of Scream Queen-O-Ween, the films of Jamie Lee Curtis with The Fog. For Bruce Leslie, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, I'm Adam Portress, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.